Hey, it's Az Baldock here, empowerment coach and new world creator. Today I'm speaking with Annie Clark. Annie is a health practitioner and she is just the bomb. She's written over 18 books. One of them is The Poo in You. Also have another one on adrenal fatigue, which I've lent to a friend. So I haven't got that one at the moment, but both fantastic books. And every time I speak with Annie, I'm enlightened. So I'm really excited to speak with you today, Annie, and get some of your insight and wisdom on how we can be empowered through health.
Yeah, excellent.
Health is like the foundations of a good life.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. And I have to say, every time I speak with you, Aaron, I'm inspired.
Thank you.
And humbled. So you're doing good things, you know?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So we were talking earlier before we went to air about empowerment, so health through empowerment. And it got me thinking that this isn't something I have to pretend. This isn't even something I have to practice. This is my life.
Yeah.
You know? And so I've made this my life's work. And it's as natural to me as breathing in air to share and teach about wellness.
Yeah.
And it started, honestly, it started a long time ago because I never thought that I would be in the wellness industry. I wanted to be an art teacher or an actress.
Yep.
But I got kicked out of the play, so that was the end of that, you know. So, but there was something in me that wanted to be out in front, not entertaining so much, but teaching. So, you know, I disrupted the class. Now I run the class. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 100%.
Okay. So, something interesting happened when I was outside the principal's office as a young kid, counting tiles, 2,556 of them. I remember that. I was thinking about what was important way back then, and I decided that I was going to move out of home and I was going to prepare my own food. And it wasn't that I didn't love my family and acknowledge that they were beautiful souls. It was that when I saw that, I saw that they were eating foods that weren't necessarily holistic. And I was very young observing this. So I thought, right, I'm going to save up, I'm going to buy my own place, I've got my own kitchen, and I can be responsible for my own food. And that's how the journey happened. And then I wrote my first book, Good Health Recipes from Breakfast to Tea, as an assignment for a course that I was doing on a retailer's nutrition course.
Yep.
And herbs. So I submitted the book, but I typed the book up, now I'm really showing my age.
Yeah.
Typewriter, and got it printed by Snap Printing, staple bound, and travelled all around Melbourne and sold this book to health food shops.
Wow.
Because I recognised way back then that the health food shops, they had a lot of American books. They didn't have Australian influence back then. I'm talking early 80s.
Yeah.
Put it in perspective. You know, the big hair time.
Yeah.
And so then what I noticed was that what was the first need? People would come into the health food shop. They were looking for a packet of chickpeas. They didn't even know how to use the chickpeas back then. And gluten-free flour and all of these ingredients were a little bit like out there back then. So I thought, right, I need to write about these and teach people about these and how to prepare these in a meal, which meant I'd go home to my kitchen, which I turned into a laboratory and create these amazing recipes.
Yeah.
So fast forward to now, and where I said, it's interesting, in 1992, I was being inspired myself about raw foods by Dr. John Fielder up in Closey River. And I knew that he was onto it. I knew that the whole live food thing was important because that's where you get that cellular health.
Yeah.
That's not happening in stodgy food. So I thought, right, I have to write something about this. And In the Raw was born in 1993, and we're currently working on the 4th edition of In the Raw, which is really updated to now.
Yep.
And it's going into how we use food to raise a vibration in us as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's very avatar. It's very avatar. I have no problem with people eating animals if they understand the journey of that animal's life to get onto their plate. They have to be responsible. So my role now with education is let's look at the journey of our food, what's involved with harvesting it, preparing it, and the vibration of us when we're preparing that food.
Mm-hmm.
That awareness alone can dramatically change the way you are.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, so much of our food is just not that high quality because of the soils they're grown in, and so much of the meat it comes from stressed animals, and it has all the cortisol and stress hormones in it. People they don't realize they're taking in that energy, and the food is fuel for your body. I don't even think people have that awareness, that they just put it in to fill a hole. They're not actually.
That's just it. It. Because there's fast food and there's slow food. And I always say to people, especially when I'm talking about food, I say just slow down. Just have a think about what you're doing. Why are you eating that? Why are you piling up 5 times the size of your own stomach on a plate at a smorgasbord restaurant? And a lot of people eat because of anxiety. They're not eating because, okay, now it's time to nourish. They're eating because of a void. And they're sitting down with a tray on their lap. They've got the 6 o'clock news on, and they're hoeing into the meal. And they're watching the violence that's playing out on the news while they're eating the meal that they've prepared in a state of absolute and utter ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to just bring it back to the fact that there is a ceremony. I'm not saying that I don't have a meal in front of the TV. I like watching movies. So that I enjoy that, but I'm always blessing my food. I bless the food before I eat it. I'm always grateful for the food, and there is something on that plate. More often than not, it's mostly alive. There's salad on it. My husband and I have been really enjoying eating what we call winter salads. So we actually make up a whole lot of greens. We put sun-dried tomatoes in there. We put nuts like walnuts. We put avocado, lots of avocado, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, and we just stack it, and then we put a dressing over that. And we just hold that. We cook some sweet potato or baked pumpkin or a couple of spuds with parsley. And it's just really nourishing, and that's our winter salad. And then I'll do a little pan fry of zucchini and capsicum and put that in as well. And it's really nice on the digestion. Very good for what's called the Vata constitution. So I'm going into doshas now because this is Ayurvedic medicine.
Yeah, right.
3 doshas: Pitta, Vata, and Kapha. And I'm very Vata, and my husband is very Pitta. The Vatas are lean. They're lean people. They feel the cold. They need warming food. And the Pittas are more your style. You're bit muscular. They can handle the cold, but don't let them get too hot. They overheat. If they overheat, they're unbearable. So they need different foods to the Vata dosha.
Right.
And then there's a Kapha, and they tend to be more roly-poly. They're like the Oprah Winfreys. You can't make them skinny. You shouldn't make them skinny. And they are a combination of the Vata and the Pitta. And we're all a combination of all those doshas. But when you know that, I have a lot of respect for the Indian medical approach, if I could call it that. It's alternative. But I also have a lot of respect for the live food movement. I basically started the live food movement. Not to sound arrogant or cocky, but I was doing raw foods and teaching about it before anyone in Australia was teaching it.
Yeah.
So it was just something that I thought, I don't want to be ahead of the times with health. I want to be part of a movement, but somebody has to lead it somewhere. So my big next thing is, food is great. We get too hung up on it. What about focusing on the mind health, which is what you're about, Aaron?
Yeah.
What's going on about our responsibility as a being on this planet and the way we nourish ourselves? What's like a paper trail, but I call it the soil trail. So you mentioned soil before. What's the trail of activity that happens? For us, the word is, what's the consequence? What's the consequence of us going to a hamburger place and buying a hamburger as a form of food? How many things have happened? How much raping and pillaging of the earth happened to satisfy that one little desire to have a hamburger. You
Yeah.
know? Was there misery for the person that was actually making the hamburger in the fast food place? Were they arguing with someone at home and then coming to work where they don't even want to work there, but there they are working and making the hamburger? That's the meat, the journey of the animal to end up in that way. And the saddest thing is that quite often an animal has suffered incredibly to end up being in some sort of processed meat tray, to be ending up being bought by someone at the supermarket, to then go home and sit at the back of the fridge, and then to be overlooked and therefore being thrown out in the bin. That happens so much, and that kills me. Like, this animal has not died under the Avatar principle. It has died violently. It has a shit of a life, and then it ends up on a plastic tray in a supermarket to be overlooked and thrown in the bin. That's what I'm saying. There's a bigger picture here.
Wow.
I'm about that. I'm saying, I'm not about waste. I'm about, let's look at this. If we can grow food appropriately and not damage the earth in the process, we can be humane about that and harmonious, and then harvest that food without it being an issue, and then promote that food locally so that no fuel is being used up to get that. I mean, so everyone could have little gardens all over the place. That's a contribution.
Yep.
And it goes further than that too. It's like, I'm aligned with essential oils, all right? And I've thought very carefully about which essential oils I use. And I like the idea of the current ones that I'm using because the source, being the farms, are the people that are getting sustained and nourished first, because I decide to buy my essential oils from them. It's really powerful. So I'm looking at the whole train of events. I'm getting my holistic oil. I know it's pure, but it goes right back to the source, to the people that grew the plant. They're a community now that are being sustained. They've got fresh water. The kids are going to school now because I chose to support their geology, their geography. So, and that's looking at communities. And that's how we need to be, I feel, to move forward on this planet. When it comes to health, there's what I call obvious selfishness. Obvious selfishness, where people are actually so selfish, they're not even thinking. They want their health, and they're making good decisions, but they're not thinking about the journey of some of the things that they're buying. And if everyone just made a little effort like that, this is going to create a huge shift on our planet as well.
Huge shift.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So it's bigger than what most people are prepared to think about.
Yeah.
They're growing up in a time where we live in a time of convenience, where convenience rules, okay? And this affects health. Convenience rules over the fact that with a little bit of effort, believe me, I know about soil. I've had a go at growing food out of my garden. And I've got mandarin trees, lemon trees, I've got greens growing, I've got sweet potato growing. The little mice get to the sweet potato before I do most times. I've got pineapples. It takes 18 months for me to get a pineapple.
Wow.
I would starve if I was relying on my garden. But I've been able to analyse the soil, and it's tough. It's really tough to rebuild the soil. So we're doing that with new microorganisms. I know this is a whole other segment, Aaron.
Yeah.
It's all about empowerment through health. So, we've got to look at what we're doing. It's not just about, I don't know, it's not just about going to a health food shop and purchasing some pills or whatever. It's a big thing.
Yeah.
This morning, before speaking with you, both my partner and I, we sort of woke up and we were feeling stressed. We had stress building up in us because I'm going to get on an airplane today, and before I get on the airplane, there's a million things to do. So as I said to you before we were on air, I was observing the observer of me, thinking, why are you behaving this? So we dropped everything and we said, let's do the hill. Now, when I talk about the hill is, I don't come up for air, do I, Aaron?
Yeah, you're right.
The hill is adjacent to our property. I could almost turn the screen around and show you, but it's steep, right? It's steep. It's a training hill.
Yeah.
And I challenge anyone to run up and down that hill a few times because that'll knock the cocky out of them very quickly. So anyway, we go and we do the hill. And because we exerted all that energy going up the hill, it's beautiful, you know, and then down again, and then up again, and then down again. That's quite a feat, believe me. It's probably about 4,000 steps, if you could put it, it's 4,000 steps. So, and it helped relieve our stress. So that's another way of knowing how to deal with health. I didn't take a pill. I moved my body to work through getting well. And it's what I say to people. I didn't ring up a psychologist. We actually used God-given selves and got up that hill, and then we felt a lot better.
Yep. I can totally resonate with that. I go for a walk every morning, and it's up a pretty steep hill. And even this morning, like I'd done squats 2 days ago, and my legs are still killing me. And to roll out of bed, there's resistance there. I'm like, oh. Even getting out into the cold Hobart winter.
I don't know how you do that.
And then, but the thing is, once I'm up that hill and I've, got the oxygen flowing, I do deep breathing, and I push through that resistance. When I'm at the top, I have so much clarity. I can do my intentions for the day. I do my envisioning for my life. I do my affirmations, get my state up, and as soon as I know what it is I want, I go and I sit up against a tree and I just release it all, and I become very present, and I actually ground my energy down in through the roots of the tree. And it's just something I'll learn off someone, and it's just a really way to get through any resistance I wake up with, because we all, like, even I didn't sleep that well, it doesn't matter, I get up and I push through it, and just starting that day I have all these insights on where I can go next. All the answers that you need come to you when you have this good feeling.
Absolutely.
That good feeling comes from the good food, that feeling comes from the good thoughts, and feeling good, you think good, and all the answers you need, they pop in.
That's a really good point there. Feeling good, you think good.
Yeah.
I always like what Zig Ziglar said. He said, most people need a checkup from the neck up.
Yeah.
Checkup from the neck up. I thought that was beautiful. It's really old-fashioned, but it's still really relevant. So
Totally.
Empowerment through health is about moving your body and knowing what tools to go to when you're observing yourself behaving a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got ulcers in the mouth or pain in your toe, like gout-like symptoms, or what do? You're going to take a tablet, or you're going to take some responsibility for that. So, well, that's interesting. Isn't that an interesting gift that my body's given me for that?
Yeah.
So what's been going on for that to develop?
Yeah.
And then address it and be empowered about the way you address it. So I use food, of course. I use the mind more.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I also believe in the gut, because I call the stomach is your second brain. So when I'm speaking to groups, I always say, you're judging me right now. Even you who are listening to us talking, you're judging this on your gut first. Your gut is tuning in to this information, this wisdom, if you think it's wisdom. And then from that, you're dissecting that, and then you'll literally digest it, that information. So your gut is very powerful. It has the same anatomy, the same tissue structure as part of your brain. So when you find that you're uncomfortable here, the tension has driven that, most definitely. But which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
Is it here or is it here? And I'm saying it's like a whirlwind.
Oh, 100%. And you know what? I did my first 24-hour fast when I got back from Bali, and because I was just feeling heavy, and I did it for the mental challenge as well. But the clarity I had from it, like even after only 12 hours, I was just amazed. And yeah, and I'm feeling heavy here, if I've eaten a heavy meal, like heavy breads or too much rice or something like that, I can feel my energy dulling down. And, all those little negative thoughts, they just start creeping in. And of course, I'm aware to dismiss them, but it's better if they don't come in at all.
Yeah, it does. It takes incredible discipline to observe that and then to act on it. And you can even look at it and say, well, how is that going to serve me? That thought you just had, You know, it's estimated we have around 60,000 thoughts a day. And what is disconcerting is 95% of them are the same thoughts we had yesterday. Fact.
Totally.
So I always like to say, all right, I'm going to look at something or read something that gets me out of what I was thinking about yesterday. I've got to have a different thought pattern. That's saying, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting another result.
Exactly.
So what I say is, right, I know how that works, so why would I go down that same channel again? I know that if I eat dairy, I'm going to end up on the toilet. So why would I put my body through that? And I'm not going to eat liquid meat. No, I really like the idea of having food that actually I know doesn't require too much effort for my internal employees to utilize. This is very important. This is where you can get energy, what you were saying about grounding, because bread and overcooked foods and scalded foods and burnt food, when it goes into your mouth, it's like there's a whole lot of little employees right there. They're talking to each other and saying, have you seen what's just come in? And they go, yeah, I have. So what are we going to do with it? Oh, no, just send it down the esophagus. Let the stomach deal with it. And so all the way down the esophagus, there are more employees going, have you seen what's coming in? Yeah, just send it down the stomach. They'll deal with it. By the time that denatured food gets to your stomach, which is the size of a fist, by the way, right, there's nothing in it that your employees can use. On the contrary, what they'll do is they'll use stored water and stored nutrition to try and access nutrition from that dead, overcooked, burnt mass.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when that happens, you get tired. You get tired. So up here, the first brains, it gets a memo from the guys down the stomach to say, hey, you heard what's going on down here? There's a war going on down here. All right, red alert, we'll send our troops down. So the brain sends down all its troops, which takes valuable blood away from the brain and nutrients to deal with the war in the gut, which means you're now foggy. You can't make rational decisions. In fact, you're even cranky and you're actually angry at somebody. You don't even know why. And the reason why is because somewhere along the lines of all this, the liver got involved. And the liver is the organ, when you get out of balance, the liver is the organ of anger. If you're in an angry state, you can bet your life your poor old liver is doing too much work.
Yeah.
The liver and the stomach are having this war. Nothing's getting digested. That dead food, that denatured food that you're eating is now being parked. Because just like in a factory, if a whole bunch of employees get a job to do and they don't know how to deal with it, they're not going to do it. They're going to go off and have morning tea. And they're going to leave that. They're going to store it. So it gets stored in the body. And that's where disease starts to manifest.
Yeah, so true.
That's the Annie Clark version.
Yeah, I love the way you explain these things.
But you're there, aren't you? You've actually gone into your stomach. You're imagining your internal employees happy. So when you eat something like what we had this morning, we had a smoothie. The smoothie was full of berries, bananas, coconut oil, nutrition for the soul. It had a little bit of shake mix in there. It also had water and a little bit of almond milk.
Yeah.
Put the lid on, blend it all up. I didn't put nuts in it this morning because I didn't want to aggravate something that was going on for me. So I just kept it very simple. Now the difference with something like that, empowerment through health, is that smoothie goes into the body, it goes down the esophagus. My internal employees are going, have you seen what's coming down today? You know? Yeah, it's awesome, isn't it? We can use that. Let's use the potassium from the banana. Let's use the antioxidants from the berries. We can do that. We know exactly what to do with that. By the way, that area down by the legs, that needs a bit of a clean up. Great, there's enough nutrition there to clean that up as well. And there's a little bit of a backlog there in the bowel area. Great, we'll be able to eliminate.
Yeah.
That's the harmony that's going on.
Yeah.
Consequences.
Yeah. One of the big things when I was starting my health journey was learning about acidity and our pH levels. Yeah. So would you say acidic foods are the ones that are causing all this trouble in our gut?
Yes and no. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to throw that to the left field. So what happens is that I always say a beautiful meal, high alkaline meal, eaten in a state of anxiety will turn that meal to acid.
Wow.
And a crappy meal eaten in a state of joy, this is going to actually contradict what I said right at the start, but bear with me. A crappy meal prepared with love, really, prepared with love and eaten in a state of relaxation and bliss may not be as destructive. So this is where the mind comes in. Obviously, 9 times out of 10, we want to make sure that we're eating food that is alkaline. And alkaline food is lots of greens, soaked almonds, coconut oil, blah, blah, all right? Avocados. And an acid meal is an overcooked meal, which has been reheated, it's denatured, it's tin food, it's tin salmon, all of that. That is actually acidic, all right? If you think about how often you eat food like that, I go over it in this situation in my book, In the Raw. If you think about the course of the day and how much food you eat is actually high in acid, and if the acid content, so that could be a cooked chook with roast vegetables and green peas, they're all cooked. But if you serve that same meal, if you reduce the meat size down to what I call Asian proportion, I always say eat like an Asian, because their meat is very small and their vegetable quantity is quite high, and that's why they do okay. Whereas the Western way is the other way around. The meat is the dominant, the vegetables are just there to make the meat look good. You know what I'm saying? So I always say reverse that. Look at what you're eating during the course of the day, and if 25% of it is concentrated, which is acidic, which is the poultry, the dairy, the meat, whatever, 25% of it, that's not too bad, because 75% of it is the leafy greens, the fresh fruit, the seeds that are alkaline, the nuts like the almonds that are alkaline, the avocado, and that balances it out. It's when that ratio is the other way around that we get into trouble.
Yeah.
On a consistent basis. That simple principle, I learned that in 1991, that to articulate that, and that has been my guide for all of my life.
Yeah.
And it served me well.
Yeah. Wonderful. And you well, before we started this conversation, we touched on disease.
Yes.
Even the word of it, dis-ease.
Yes.
And how when we're not at ease, when we're being resistance, this manifests in the body. And there's a massive mind-body connection, and often anyone who's got disease or illness, you can trace it back to their thought patterns or something like that. So wanted to get your insight on how resistance is disease.
Yeah, I've seen this a lot because 32 years in consultations with people doing iridology and now nest practitioner, and just face-to-face with people and finding out the way they live. See, when you come to see me for a consultation, Aaron, I'm going to ask you about how you start the day. I'm going to ask you about how you feel about the work you do.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to ask you to take a photograph of your bowel, your deposit in the toilet, I should say, your poo. And then I'm going to actually scan your pH. And then I'm going to show you how I can change your pH from acid to alkaline in 30 seconds. But I'm also going to show you how you can do it with your thoughts too. So it takes a while. But so I have to look at where they've been, how they feel about who they live with. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
You're the sum total of the first 5 people you hang around with.
100%.
Who are you living with? Who's influencing you? Who are you allowing to influence you? All of this is relevant to the acid alkaline thing and disease, because people, look, Unimag, my Unimag is a classic. A stubby of beer a day, Cadbury Dairy Milk chocolate bar a day, 1 meal sitting on the stove that she just, I swear to God, I never saw it go in the refrigerator. This is when I lived in Melbourne. I used to go and see Auntie Madge. Auntie Madge had a really strong, good mind. Oh, and she smoked cigarettes.
Yeah.
She drank coffee. That's another contradiction, isn't it?
Yep.
Look, this woman had a fantastic mind. She was absolutely on task, you know what I mean? Right up until the last 2 years of her life. she spent a lot of time in her dressing gown in her home, and she lived on her memories. She was a can dancer in the Roaring 20s. She had like 3 husbands. She's just an amazing woman, you know. And I used to sit there and listen to her stories, and they were scandalous. It was just, but she had this smile on her face like you wouldn't believe. She lived to the age of 85.
Yeah.
What I found really particularly marvellous about Annie Madge is she had her mind all the way up until that point. Your mind is very valuable. The physical body is useful, by golly it is, but the mind is really important, because I've seen a lot of the other. So when the other being what it looks like when you've got all your physicality but you don't have a mind. You know? Yep. So to me, mental health is really important now. And my physical well-being is in alignment with that.
Yep.
There are going to be people like Annie Madge that are left of field that are going to throw you off your belief compass. They're somehow going to thrive on their cigarettes and their stubby and their 1 meal a day and their chocolate and, you know, all their bad habits. They're just going to thrive because there's a strength within their mind that they're happy. They're happy.
Yeah.
I have another story about that. There's a TED talk that I can't remember the guy's name, but he talked about living in a village in the mountains of Peru. And everyone was happy. They kicked around coconuts or whatever, you know, or they just had nothing. They were poor as poor, but they were happy. No one whinged. Everyone got on with each other. The big deal of the day was where they were going to get their water and what they were going to have for a meal at night and the stories they'd tell around the campfire, until Western intervention came in. And these people visited this village and said, you guys need TV. You know, you need TV, you need stoves, you need development. So they developed the village. And then all of a sudden they became unhappy. They became miserable. And then crime started to happen. Wives and husbands started to fight with each other because they got civilized. It's a great talk, if I could find it. It's in the notes of one of my talks that I did. So what am I saying here? I'm saying come back to earth. Come back to earth as much as you can. I'm due for it, Aaron. I know. I go and do a walk or a hike somewhere. I did a walk in 2008. I did Kokoda Track. I always wanted to do it. And I wanted to do it not so much for the fitness. I just wanted to get back to what was real, because I was sort of not happy for a while. I was just finding everything was just too superficial around me. And you know what that means? It means I'm superficial.
Yeah.
It means me. I take responsibility for that. So I went on this walk and I started to sing songs again and write poems while I'm walking. Everyone else is slipping and sliding over this track and I'm enjoying it. It was hard. It was a hard walk. It's one of the hardest tropical walks that you can do in the world, the Kokoda Track. But I tell you, I found my happy there.
Wonderful.
Those people are poor. They don't have anything, you know. They've got sores on them, all sorts of problems, you know, but they sing while they're washing their clothes on rocks, you know.
Yeah.
In the villages down near Port Moresby, big problems, but I won't talk about that. But where they've got away from any sort of corruptiveness or civilization, they're a lot happier.
Yeah.
And then we did another trail. We did Lara Pinta, which is the middle of Australia. Once again, getting off the treadmill or the rat race thing and getting back to nature and experiencing a walk where you're physical and you've got no distraction, no blazing T-shirts with advertising all over, you know. You're just on the track. I like to wear very neutral colours. I don't like a lot of words all over me.
Mm-hmm.
I find that very busy, and I find that when I'm walking on a track, I see people with all these, you know, live life, love now, all this sort of stuff. Like, what are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
Too many words, too many patterns. Just keep it very clean, you know?
Yeah, totally.
There was a science fiction movie that came out, probably 20 years ago, that I can't remember it, but everyone was wearing hemp clothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like hemp cottons on their body, and it was all the same natural colours. And the world had got itself to such a state that this is interesting, that all the digital technology was basically gone.
Mm.
There was no computers anymore, and people had to find a way to survive. And the elders of the communities were the ones that stepped back in because they still knew how to grow something, whereas all the young ones thought that everything came from cups or jars or tins. So they all had to go back to the earth. That's not so science fiction-y.
Yeah.
So it's, I guess, maybe rounding off what we've been talking about is get your connection back to your food source. Rein it in a little bit. Get a little bit more humble and holistic about everything in your life. You know, look at the things that are around you. Where did that come from? You know, okay, I've got a plastic printer in the background. What sort of a journey was involved for that to happen? You know, that might sound a bit heavy, but it's all relative to health. It is.
It is, totally, in creating a harmonious environment.
Yeah, you've got to think like that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's all that higher awareness.
Yeah. But I'm not into, you know, doom and gloom. I'm actually into, I believe we've got some really good stuff ahead of us.
Oh, 100%.
I see good things happening. I see it in our kids. I see it in my son. I got great faith in people like you, Aaron, the young ones that are just, they're questioning. They're not going to accept all this. They're going to go, hang on a sec.
Yeah.
I think there's something we can do here.
Yeah.
That's what I love.
Totally. I've always been a questioner. I remember I was at primary school in church. I think I was in prep. I was looking up at Jesus on the cross and I thought, if he really did die for me, he wouldn't want me sitting here bored out of my mind.
Oh, that's fun. I love that. Yeah.
And also I'd be sitting in class and everyone's trying to do maths and I'd be looking outside, looking at the trees, just going, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, what is all this?
And what, you were 5 or something?
Oh, no, I was a little bit older then when I started questioning just reality in general. Like, what am I doing here and why am I sitting in this classroom? Like,
yeah.
You know, what's the point to all this? So I think always asking these deeper questions, you'll get deeper answers if you trust what comes to you.
Yeah, that's so true. And I got into a lot of trouble for asking questions.
Yeah.
And hence I spent all that time outside the principal's office. But and eventually the nun that ran the school got in touch with my mum and they said, look, the official term is expel. We expel people like Annie, you know. That's the official term. She was so nice. She said to Mum, I just think your daughter needs to be out of school. I think she's going to thrive. How's that? So Mum begged her to keep me in until the end of the year.
Yeah.
And then I left school at the official level of Form 4, which I don't know what year that is. It might be year 10. And I then went on and went to a business school, and it was hard for me because I wanted, a business like bookkeeping and typing and all that. And I was looking at the art students on the train and thinking, I want to go off and do art. Why am I learning to type and do business school? And then something beautiful happened out of that because I typed all my books.
Yeah.
Fast on the keyboard. I could type my books and I can write, and it just meant that was another form of art, which was writing. But I had to go through what I went through first, so.
That's it.
You might have been looking out of the window, Aaron, at trees and thinking, what's it all about? You knew what it was all about then, because as soon as you're questioning, that means that you're setting up a porthole for awareness. And that porthole just gets wider and wider and wider. When you stop questioning and someone says the earth is flat, and you go, oh, no worries, if that's what you say, if the earth's flat, I'll believe you. Then what's going to happen is you're going to go through your whole life accepting that the earth is flat, that you can't do this, you can't go there, and you'll never achieve this.
Yeah.
The earth is round, it's infinite. And you can achieve whatever you decide you're going to achieve, because you're going to create it first in your mind. And when you create it first in your mind and get rid of all the doubting toms that are all there in your brain, because they're there.
Yeah.
I remember when I published that little book, Good Health Recipes from Breakfast to Tea, I self-published it. I remember the guy across the road in the post office. This is where language is quite profound. When I bring the books over to post the ones that were mail order, he'd look at me and he'd say, this is wonderful what you're doing. He says, you're going to be a millionaire one day. And I thought, but millionaires are unhappy. Isn't that interesting?
Interesting, yeah.
Millionaires are unhappy. This is, like, I'm only 22 when I'm thinking. And where did I get that story from? And then I raised this with my dad, because we recently went on a road trip up to North Queensland. My dad and I, Thelma and Louise.
Awesome.
No driving off cliffs. Unfortunately, Brad Pitt wasn't there, but that's okay. So anyway, I brought this up with Dad when I was walking along Clifton Beach with him. I said, Dad, you used to say things like, money doesn't grow on trees. You used to say, when people would drive past in nice cars, sometimes you'd say, oh, the beautiful people, almost sniggering at them. And he said, no, I never did that. I never did that, Annie. And I said, well, how come I remember that? You know, please correct me if I'm wrong. And he said, no, I never did that. And I said, well, I know I got some sort of an issue that grew up in me, and I learnt it from somewhere or some people. And I know it was you guys, because that's why I was determined to move out of home so young, because maybe you've changed your thoughts now and it looks like you have. But back then, that's what I was seeing, that I was getting corrupted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With other people's opinion. And that's the same with health, Aaron.
Yeah.
Exactly the same with health. People learn their eating styles from the first people they grow up with. So if mum and dad are putting rice bubbles in a bowl, cow milk on top, and a chunk load of sugar into that and eating that as their breakfast, this is what the kids are growing up experiencing, you know? This is what they're experiencing. I've got somebody at the window.
It's all right.
So I've really gone off the track a little bit there.
That's all right. That's all right. And, you know, that's why I say in my videos, I'm as Baldock and I'm a new world creator, because we're here to bust the system. We're here to, you know, change the cycle of our families and create a whole new world.
You're doing it. You're doing it.
So are you, Annie. You've been leading the path, laying down the path for others to follow, and that's why you're a leader and a rainbow warrior.
A leader and a bleeder.
Yeah.
Particularly when I was running up and down hills and getting myself into thorny bushes.
It's all part of the journey.
Thanks, Aaron. It is. It's a privilege to share that with you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to me, and I love having conversations with you. I think we did go a bit over time, but
what the heck?
Time's on our side.
Absolutely. And if people want to tune off, they've probably already done it by now. But
yeah.
I think they'll stay tuned in, because they'll be thinking about the journey of their food. They'll be thinking about the influence of their education.
Yeah.
People who they live with. They'll be thinking about whether or not they should be using essential oils to shift state.
Yeah.
They'll be thinking about the language they're speaking, and they'll be thinking about the factory in their body after this talk today.
100%. Yep. Yeah. And creating a new world. New world creators.
With ads.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thanks, Annie. We'll do it again sometime, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, love.
Cheers.